So I have it on the drum loop. Great. I'm going to also put it on the kick audio track. So I'm just dragging it from there. Done. I know I'm going to put on the kick MIDI track. Done. Again, it's off because I don't know if I'm going to use every one of these tracks. I don't want to just sit here and waste CPU on stuff that I might not use down the road. I'm also going to click this button because I don't need to see all these macro positions. I also could map this out. I can get super detailed and I can map some macros in here. Basically just easy ways to control what's happening over here. But I actually like to look at the big picture over here, and I like to fiddle with things visually. Again, I just don't want to move a knob. I want to look at it. So for that reason, I don't do a macro. But I have a macro for some effect stuff that I'll use in the future. So I'm going to bring this again to the other tracks. And the difference between some of these is that a snare and a clap, I am pretty sure that I don't need to use most of this space for that. I'm going to cut the lows at least 250. Typically a clap or a snare is not supposed to have a lot of beefy low end elements to it. That's for the kick, that's for the bass, that's for things that are supposed to have that. You don't want the snare and the clap mudding up the rest of your track. So I'm going to remove that, keep it as is, take it off, and copy it over now. I'm not actually going to drag it from here. I'm going to copy because I want to keep that same little bit. And now we're going to go to the hats. So the hats, same deal. I'm actually going to drag this even further over because I really don't want any low to low mids even in my hi-hats. If it's like a sample with hats and a kick or something, it's going to go in a different track. This is just for hi-hats. So I'll just grab this little hat sample that I got the other day just to hear it. So yeah, this is all the information that we need up here, right? Down here, there's nothing that I would ever want to play over there. Like, so I'm going to take all that out. I'm going to reset that one back to 0 and that one back to 0. That's great. Now, I might move this on the fly, but that's a good starting point. And I'm going to keep that on just because, why not? Same deal with this one. This is the MIDI version. Great. Done. I am going to do one thing specifically. Now, I was early in my music career getting in the habit of making a drum rack with a bunch of different sounds in it. So at any moment I could just, boom, pick a sound. But what ended up happening is I started using the same sounds because I got really lazy. I was like, that kick sounds great. But it was a kick that I used 4 or 5 times in the past 2 months, you know, so I want to get away from that. But I also don't want to add extra time to what I'm doing. I want to be efficient. Let's just say that I know I will put a kick drum in the track. So I'm going to go on Splice. I'm going to find a kick. See, these are loops. I actually don't know if I want loops. So I just want a kick that is going to punch through the mix, that has a little bit of thump to it, so that I can hear it while I'm making a song. This is a good one that I found. Shout out to these guys. Sweet. So that's just going to be right on there. Okay. So that's going to be there when I feel like I need to just punch in a really quick kick rhythm. So I'll just give you an example, making a new MIDI clip. Let's just go super simple, like a house song. Right? That's how easy it is to just, boom, come up with a beat right away and just a kick rhythm. This is instead of using that metronome sound. So I'm going to keep that there as well because this is something that I do find that I use a lot. Okay, we're going to go down to the snare now, and I'm going to, again, find another sample of a very basic snare, and maybe a clap as well. Yeah, that's pretty much all I want. Just something super tight and easy just to get what I need to do on the rhythm. So this is how simple this can be. Is I just want to put these here, again, like a house beat. And that skipped one for some reason. I'll just play them both at the same time so you can hear. So that's totally simple. But again, I'm not committed to any of it, and it's just there because I know I might use that rhythm in the future on this MIDI clip, or I might use, I'm not going to use this sound most likely, but I will use that place for it. So like if I was producing a song and I'm like, okay, cool, now I need a snare. Okay, I grab a snare from here, right? Let's just say I want to do this one now. It's a different snare. I can just replace that one inside of the group, and then this stays, right? It's the same exact one. And by the same exact one, it's the same clip. I'm just playing a different sample. So again, let's just replace it quickly. So it's like super easy for me to find a great sample that I like. Might even keep that one. It's a little more tinny. Hi-hats. So we don't need those on there, but, and I'm also going to get rid of that for now. I do want to do the same thing I just did to that. Snare and kick. I want to just add one simple hat sample. That's great. Something that cuts through the mix that I could just hear what's happening quickly. I don't have to really think about it. And if you're going with the house vibe, the hats go here. So, boom. Okay, we're at 120 in the tempo, so it's pretty simple. Turn them all on. It's such a cliche house beat, but it's a great starting point and super easy to just get right into and just start editing and making your own rhythm. So I'm going to keep all that there. And again, I'm going to have these all disabled. And then once I feel like, okay, now I'm going to work on the drums, it's going to be really easy for me to jump in. So that was the main parts of a beat, right? Kick, snare, hat, percussion. I don't really need to do anything super specific for these except add that same rack on here, the basic, what do I call it? Basic something. Oh, main chain. I call it main chain. So I'm just going to add the main chain. For this one, I don't want to remove the lows, maybe up to there, just because percussion is often filled with low frequencies that you kind of want. The drum fill, same deal. Okay, so now those are all on there. Placement, ready to go. So as soon as I add something, boom, turn it on. I got my rack right away. Okay. There's other things that I know that I'm going to use on a lot of different tracks, and that is going to be my next step on these beats. So I'm going to do it on the beats first, and then I'm going to basically take what I do on the beats and move it to the other instruments because it's a good framework. The beats are a good framework for the rest of the song. I have inside of Ableton a ton of different effects that I use on a pretty regular basis, but the problem is having those effects always on a template, if the computer isn't the fastest, it can bog down stuff. So that's why I use a return track, okay? But the problem with a return track is like if I just want one little delay hit for a snare and then I don't want that to modulate, right? But I have a keyboard being sent to that return track, then it's hard because now I have to separate the return tracks, or maybe I have to totally change the automation. I just don't want to run into that in the future. So because of that, I tend to put effects on the group and again, disable them so they're ready to go. So a couple different things that I would use on a regular basis, and I'm going to go from an other from a older template that has some of this stuff already in it. So I'm just gonna, for instance, I'll actually grab the drum loops one from the old template, and I will grab the devices and just see what we got. So a bunch of stuff. So that's very similar to the first thing. And then this here is the bread and butter, what I wanted to show you. So delete all that for now. This is an old effects rack that I made. I mean, it's still current. I use it on pretty much all my templates at the moment. But it's things that I'm going to use on a fairly regular basis. We will grab a drum sample just so you can hear some of these. Those are kicks. So now I need a loop. Here we go. Let's see what we got. That's cool. It's super minimal. I don't really want a bunch of stuff in the way on this tutorial, so great. I'm also going to take this down 5 decibels. I'm going to take this down 5 decibels. So I do this because in mixing, I want to set this up for the future and have it to be future-proof for me. And I know in the future that if I end up when I end up mixing this song fully, I have to turn all this stuff down most of the time anyway. So if I turn it down right now, that means if I need some kind of adjustment in my mixing phase, all I have to do is add, right? So add volume on a different track. So like, let's say the percussion's way too loud, right? I could just add volume on the hats or the clap just by 1 or 2 decibel. Maybe that'll solve it. But I don't actually have to lower anything. I could raise the other things, and that also works in the opposite direction. So if everything starts low and I might need 1 more decibel from the percussion, I can just add 1 and I'm nowhere close to 0. I'm still 5 decibels away. Sometimes I like to do 7, but -5 is a good place to be because this is already going to the group, which is on -5 as well, if you noticed. So it's -5 decibels going into the drum loop and the -5 decibels going to the group, and then it comes out of the master track right around there at -12 decibels total. I'm going to put this bracket here, maybe like 10-ish. Okay. So I want to use this, but I need to make sure that everything still functions as I want it to. So I'm going to use this as a jump point because I don't have to recreate the wheel. This did actually take a fair amount of time to make. I'm going to ungroup the first one. So it's just going to be this group. Now I did personally make this, so I do know what all went into here. This is all effects that I feel like I would use a lot. So I'm going to get rid of the S1 imager. I'm trying to get away from VSTs a ton, but there are still some that you know what? I'm going to keep the S1 imager. I just can't get away from it. Low pass, that's a simple one. Now I have all this mapped out. Again, this is why I don't want to redo this. I have all this mapped out so that as soon as I move this knob, it turns on. So that's a way of low CPU usage. Same deal with the high pass. Everyone actually has the same feature, so that as soon as this gets on, boom. Now, I have found limitations in this rack for the spacing, so I'm actually going to add all these new spaces for different effects because I feel like I was just a little limited in how it was before. I might add another reverb or something. So low pass, easy. High pass, easy. You can close those for now. Utility gain, I actually messed this up on this, and I just never decided to do anything about it. So I'm going to do something about it now. So this needs to be very little gain on the upper part. So I'm going to just go into map mode. I'm going to map the output to, let's just say, I don't know if I want to go above like 7 decibels. So if I unmap mode now, this only goes up to 7 total. This is like my gain at the end of the track. So this is like at the end of the day, if it's too low, I'm going to make sure that I boost the volume just on here. But this also serves a very important purpose, because let's say I felt like I want this drum loop to fade in. You can automate the volume, right? That's easy. But it's wrong, because what if I want to change the volume of this track now? Cool, but then the automation's gone. Look, it just starts up and the automation just kicks right back. And then if I'm like, oh crap, I want my automation back, then my track volume is gone. That's a very common problem in Ableton. And if you know that you're going to be adjusting, or rather automating volumes at some point, this is a very good thing to have. So I'm going to set this at 0 for the template, right? Now, watch. If I automate this, the utility gain, it's serving the exact same purpose as the volume slider, except I can still change the track volume over here on the right. And now I have a beach ball. This classic Intel Mac. Okay, so that is almost all the way at 0. I need that to be all the way down. So I don't know why it's at -30, but, oh, sorry, -35 I think is the lowest, yeah. So if I unmap that, this should go down to almost nothing. Let's just keep it there for a minute. So there's still something there. What's the lowest? Is that the lowest it could go? Yeah, it is. Okay. Well, it's still there very, very subtly. But if I'm fading something in, I don't really care if it plays at -35 decibels anyway, because it's not really going to be that audible. Okay, I'm going to delete that. But that's essentially the purpose of the utility gain, is to do volume fades in and out. Same deal, you can go out. Oh yeah, and then I could freely move this around. So I could go up, that could go down. And the fade stays based on that automation. So this is super helpful to not give you more work down the road. I don't want to have to sit here and add a utility plugin to each track I'm using. It's just like, no. I want to just make sure it's right there. Okay, those are the essentials. Low pass takes the highs out, right? Sometimes I just want to cut something really quick. The high pass takes the lows out. Okay. Those are going to be set at their default positions. I don't want to use them at all to begin with. Utility gains at 0, which is default. And the next things are going to be delays, reverbs, and different kind of widening, stereo widening effects. So again, I kind of want to get away from plugins, but I just decided to delete the S1. I'm going to keep Kickstart, though. I do love Kickstart. I'll show you how it works in a minute. I kind of want to rearrange this stuff, but I also don't want to remap everything. It's not a huge deal. So I'm going to do it. Okay. I'm going to get rid of all the mappings for the reverb. And I'm going to keep the delays, though. I'm going to get rid of the feedback. And what's that reverb level? Let me go back into the echo. So that just should be dry wet. And then level. Oh, the reverb level inside the delay. That's right. That's cool. And then, so this one knob here is controlling the dry wet of the reverb. And again, now that I've used this a ton, I want to make sure that it is what I want it. So I'm going to just pump this up to 100 because I had it at 80. I don't know why. It's just something. So it goes to 100. The reverb goes to 50 when I take that all the way up. It just adds some space inside the reverb, which is cool. It's a stereo reverb. I don't really want the ping pong. That's actually a different effect. Then I want this feedback knob to be also usable in the rack and not have to go in here. Like I could do all this stuff from right here. This is why it's cool. I don't actually have to have this open. So I'm going to map feedback to this one now that's right next to it. I'm going to go feedback, map, boom, and I'm going to rename that ECHO FDBK, echo feedback, and I'm going to call this one echo DOI. Again, color coding, I love colors, so that's why I'm doing that. Now, the echo feedback, this can get really out of hand really fast. That's going to go on forever. Yeah, see? So, I don't want it to go up to 150. The most that I would want this to do, and this is a really sweet effect for any kind of music, is pushing the feedback past 100%. But if you go past 100%, more than a few, it starts getting really weird really quick, which could be cool for some things, but for my purposes, I'm going to go to 105. We're going to see. So now feedback can only go up to 105 right here. Now it could also go to 0, right? So this is a no feedback delay. It's just 1. Duh, duh. If I take this up, it's 55% worth, okay? The dry wet's still going to control the signal. So that's how much of the delay is being pushed out as opposed to the audio itself. I'm usually never going to put that at 100 unless I really feel like that's appropriate. The feedback is the thing I'm going to push most of the time. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. So now it's at 105. I could stop and it's still going to play. But it doesn't do that crazy distorted thing that it was doing when it was at 150. It's going to get there eventually, but it takes a lot longer. This is also a great time to do a high pass filter. Sorry, low pass or a high pass. So at this point, I can also just take the dry wet down and the sound stays. And then if this goes below 100, it eventually fades out. So that's why I really like the Echo device and how it works, just because I can see it. It's super easy to use. I'm going to keep this both default 0 because I don't want this to even be on right away. The last thing I do want to add here is going to be the time. So the time, and let's see, we got, oh, that should be here. And we're just going to say echo time. It's pretty good colors. That is going to be mapped to this guy. Boom, right? So this is going to control the time of the delay. So this is what this looks like. If I put this at 1, it's pretty much mimicking the beat. Duh, duh. It's taking one whole bar for the delay to happen. If I move this up to half, it's taking a half bar. If I take it down to a quarter, it's a weird one. I'd really use that one. A third, or sorry, an eighth. This is the one I use a lot. A 16th. It's kind of weird. 32nd. I'm probably gonna make sure I hit triplet here too. Or rather, let's see. I never actually messed with that too much. Gonna keep that on the notes one. So as you are hearing, there's some weird stuff happening after. You can make some really strange things with this. What? So this is why I like this delay, because it has an option to create pitch shifting based on you changing the time. So the timing of the delay. Oh yeah, and I'll finish this off. This is a 1/64th delay. Super fast, 1/32, half that, 16th, etc. Those are just note times. So the way that it reacts when you change it is an awesome thing just in general in terms of an effect. So you can throw the feedback knob on. This is just a use case for this. Throw the feedback knob at the end, all right? Maybe have a tiny bit right there, and I'm just gonna automate all this so you can see why I would use this. Okay, I'm gonna keep, or rather get the loop out of here so you can hear this. Okay, so I want the feedback to go all the way up to 101 at least, 102. So now it's gonna go forever, remember? Anything over 100 goes forever, or 100. So the cool thing is now this echo is gonna control some pitch stuff, which can be fun, trippy effects. So we're gonna start at an eighth, and then as soon as the sample ends, I'm gonna go up to 32nd and watch what this sounds like. Sweet. Sweet. 3 automations. That's how this works. And then you could even throw this back down. Oh yeah, this is only going to work if you play the sample from where the delay starts. So it's like a tape stop effect. It's pretty sweet for everything. I love it. I'm going to keep all that down, keep them off, keep that at eighth. That's how I would use a delay. I'm also going to get rid of these lanes. Actually, you know what? That might be really helpful to keep the lanes on. I never even thought about that. So, upgrade. So I tend to use a few of these all the time. I might consider keeping the lanes on for a lot of them after. I'm going to reevaluate this later.